Hey everyone, welcome to this After Effects tutorial. It's been a minute since I've created an After Effects tutorial, but I was making this video on my new personal channel, and I thought this map graphic came out pretty neat, very simple, but effective, hopefully. And I'm gonna walk through it. So I'll link to the full video in the description if you're curious about what this video is. And you can kind of see here what I'm doing. I have the map layer in the background. I have a texture overlay. I have a couple shape layers that are just strokes with a trim path on there with a couple effects to make it look a little bit neater. And then this move is actually a camera move. So I want to build this from scratch, and let's get into it. So if you're in After Effects, you can use pretty much whatever size you want, but I'm going to use 1080p or 1920 by 1080. 10 seconds is fine. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to go into my video. So if I double click my video, I want to find a spot that looks good. So this is actually a video screencast that I did of the area. So I'm looking for the spot where you see Bonn up north, and then Friesdorf, which is where I was. Okay, so we're right about there. So something like this. So I'm going to set my endpoint, and I'm just going to drop that onto my video layer or my composition. So let's make this a little bit smaller. So pressing S to bring up scale, scale it down. So this is where I'm going to basically start. We see Bonn up at the top, and then we see Friesdorf down here. And so I'm just trying to visualize the distance from Bonn and where I was living while I studied abroad. So this will be good, but I don't want my screencast to be playing. So what I'm going to do is right click, go to time or not time. Where am I? I want to create where am I? Keyframe assistant. No. Wow. It's a little bit too early, I guess. Freeze frame. Oh my gosh. Okay, freeze frame. That's what I want to do, a freeze frame. There's lots of ways to do this, but basically now this video is stuck on this frame, okay? So then I'm going to create my basic shape animations. So I want to create sort of a shape that follows along this path. So I'm going to take my pen tool. I'm going to make sure my fill is set to none. And then my stroke, let's just make it something that's easily going to be seen right now, like this red. And then the pixels, I'm not sure how wide this is going to be, if it's going to be good or not. Pressing Z on my keyboard to zoom in so I can get a little bit closer. So let's go back to my pen tool. So I'm going to start where Bonn is, and then I'm going to try to follow kind of like these streets. And so I click there, and then I see this curve, and I'm going to press the space bar so I can move around my map and get down to, let's see. This might be a little bit of a different route than I took the last time, but if I just click and drag, you can curve your lines. So I'm going to click and drag there. You'll see that that curve doesn't work for where I'm going to click next, which is going to be here, because it creates a curve, but we'll fix that up in a second. Or what you can do is press the Option key or the Alt key if you're on a PC. I'm on a Mac, and that just picks this adjustment on that side of that point that you created. And then I'm going to go all the way down to this one. Let's just go here, and then I'm just clicking and dragging, again, trying to follow that road. It doesn't have to be perfect. These animations, they have a way of, if you layer multiple things and animate them together, those little imperfections aren't very noticeable. So again, this handle, I'm going to take holding the Option key, so I'm just affecting this handle. If I don't have the Option key, it's going to affect both handles. So Option key, Alt on a PC, and there we have our full shape. Looks pretty good. So I can change the size and everything later on, but so that's good. Then I'm gonna go in here and use my rectangle, my ellipse tool. Same thing, fill at none. Stroke, we're gonna change the color just so that we have some sort of a difference, but we can change these colors in a second. And I'm just gonna click in the bond, right where bond is, and then holding the Command and Shift buttons down will create a perfect circle from where you clicked. So here, I'm just gonna go right around bond like that. Okay. And then I'm gonna wait to put that same circle around Friesdorf because I wanna animate this one first. So let's move on to our animation because right now it's just static. So let's start with the bond. Let's start with the actual red line. So let's turn off this circle, which you can rename by selecting it, pressing the return key, and we'll call this circle. And then we'll call this one road. So with the road, let's twirl this down, and what we're going to do is click Add Trim Paths. This is one of those effects that once you learn it, you just can't go back. There's so many things you can do with it. But basically what this does is it animates the path of a shape. And so if you're just using a stroke without a fill, you can animate lines on and all kinds of things. So you can see if I drag the percentage of the end on and off, you can see what we can do. So what I'm going to do is at the beginning of this composition, I'm going to set this to 0, set that keyframe, and then maybe around 5 seconds or so, we'll see. We can adjust the timing later. I'm going to go all the way to 100%. So now we have this line sort of mapping on. The speed, it's all the same speed throughout. So I want to make that a little bit more organic. So I select those keyframes, function F9, or if you want to right click, choose keyframe assistant and easy ease. This sort of ramps up the speed. And what you can actually do, which might be interesting, which I didn't do in my original animation, is just put another keyframe at each sort of, I don't know what you call that, apex of the line where it goes to a corner, as if the line has to slow down into the corner, just like if you were driving, and then it sort of speeds up in the middle. And so now you're going to get a much more organic sort of speed to this line. What we can even do is select these keyframes, and I'm sorry if I'm going a little fast, but hopefully you can slow this down, rewind, but you select the keyframes, click this little button here, which is the graph editor. Make sure you click this little drop down here to get actually speed is what we want. We want the speed graph. And if you just hover over and select all these keyframes, you'll see that, again, we have these handles, and if you bring the one holding the shift key so you don't move it up or down. Actually, just be careful. You want to drag to the right. Actually, I'm just going to hold the bottom one so I'm not moving them up or down. Right or left, and then the one on the left, you drag to the right. So you can play around with that. That gives it even more sort of a ramping effect. So in the middle, it moves faster than when it gets closer to a keyframe. So that's getting pretty intricate. But what I want to do is I don't want to just animate this on. I want it to start animating off. So the original one, see how it sort of animates on and then starts to animate off right when it sort of reaches the end. I'm going to do the same thing, and that's simply by animating the start. So if I go here to the start keyframe, right around here when it reaches the end, set the start keyframe at 0 there, and then go a couple seconds later and go all the way to 100. Same thing, select both keyframes, function F9, go to my graph editor, take these handles and bring them in, which just ramps up the speed a little bit more. So there you can see it really ramps up in the middle because we don't have all the little keyframes in the middle, and that's fine for how it sort of exits. And so now we have it going on and zooming off. Cool. All right, so that's pretty good. Let's do our circle here. Same exact premise. Add, trim paths. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this on. We're going to hit a keyframe for 100% for the end, drag that over to 1.5 seconds or so, and then drag our end to 0. So now we have it animating on. Let's do it off as well. So I'm going to go about halfway through, click that start keyframe at 0, and then go to 2 seconds and go to 100%. So now we have it coming on and off, but again, it's just a little bit stiff. So let's first easy ease them. Right click, easy ease, or function F9. And then let's also go into our graph editor. We have all the keyframes selected now. We're going to drag those handles in, and now we have a much more organic, interesting, sort of bouncy feeling to it. Something that I didn't do for the original, but would add even more sort of something interesting going on, is to add a rotation to this. So first, if I press R and I rotate, what happens? That's not what I want. I want it to rotate from the center of the circle. So I have to take my anchor point. So I take the pan behind tool, Y on your keyboard. You have to kind of look for it. It's this little icon right here. And then if I drag it over here, and if I hold the command button down on a Mac, that would be control button. It's kind of fighting with the other shape layer, but you can get it to the center of that and it sort of locks it down. If you hold the command button, it locks it in place. So now if I rotate, you can see that it rotates around right there. So while this is animating on, I can have a little bit of a rotation. So let's set a keyframe at the beginning. Now I press U on my keyboard to see all of my keyframes. And I'm just going to go here so I can see which way I'm rotating. This way just a little bit, just about a quarter turn, and then have it end when it's coming off. So let's see this. So that adds even more interest, sort of visually interesting, makes it a little bit more intricate. You know, you could go wild with this. It's just adding these little details. We could go to the ellipse. Let's change the stroke path, the line cap to a round cap. And I actually want to do that for both of these. The butt cap kind of just ends, but now let's zoom in here so you can see. It just rounds out the edges of that stroke, which I think looks better. See? Cool. You can even do, oh my gosh, crazy stuff here. After Effects now has sort of a tapering effect. So you can play with like the start width and length and all kinds of stuff. So here, okay, so here, let's see. Let's change the end width to both the 32 or something. See, that's kind of cool. Let's just crank all these up just a little bit just to see what it does. Just creating more organic shapes, kind of looks like a paint. It's painting on. You can animate all those. I'm not going to go into that much detail about that, but just add things to it. Make your animations a little bit more interesting. So we're starting here. And then when we hit Friesdorf, we want this circle, another circle down in Friesdorf. But I think that circle went a little fast. Or maybe I think the road animation is going a little slow. So what I can do to speed up an entire animation when there's lots of keyframes like this is select all of them and then hit the last one while clicking the option button, and it will squeeze them all together. Notice if I just click a keyframe and drag it, it's going to drag all of them. But what I want to do is Option or Alt if you're on a PC and drag that last one and it squeezes them. So now everything speeds up. So with this circle, what I can do is just duplicate this layer, Command D. Let's just move it right now over Friesdorf. And then let's drag the start right about here when we reach Friesdorf with our line. And here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. Kind of want to add some like tapering to this line, but that's just going to be a waste of time for you guys. So that's looking good. So everything's animating on pretty well. It kind of bugs me that the lines sort of overbond. I could even change it so that this start point keyframe starts animating off a little bit sooner. So see how that, it's more like a little worm that's going through or a snake instead of it going all the way on. I kind of like that. All right, so let's do a couple things. So let's just play with the blend mode. So to change the blend mode, make sure you hit that toggle switches mode so you see this mode drop down. What you can do is click through them, or what I like to do is just highlight or click a layer and then press Shift, and then the plus or minus keys on your keyboard. And you can kind of see what it looks like as you go through. I think the add or the lighten looks good. And then let's just probably do the same. I'm going to select both of these, and now I'm just going to drop down and go to add. You can also play with the opacity if you want, but I think for now, add looks pretty good. And then the last thing is I added a little glow effect. So let's do glow, stylize glow. We're just going to drop that onto the road. We can play with the size and the intensity, all kinds of things to make it glow even more. You could even animate it to glow more or less. But I think that looks pretty good. I'm just going to take this effect, copy it, and select both of these layers and paste it. I'm kind of running through this because I know you're probably getting a little tired of this animation so far, but hopefully it's interesting. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment if this is good. If you watched the video and you're interested in how I did any of the other effects or things like that, let me know and I'll try to make a tutorial for it. I don't like how the Friesdorf is a little bit off center, so let's nudge it around. All right, the last thing I want to do just to put it all together, make this feel super organic, is add that motion that we have here in this composition. This one's coming out, I would say, almost better than the original one, but the other video is already up on YouTube. Oh, I also added this paper texture. So this is just a texture. I'm just going to copy and paste it over here. It has a hard light blend mode. So if I didn't have the blend mode or didn't have the opacity, you can see what it looks like. Oh, that's kind of cool. But let's just change it to hard light and opacity down at 50. And I'm also, okay, so what I'm going to do is hit the toggle switches modes button. And now I'm going to make all of these 3D layers. And the reason I do that is so that I can add a move to this. There's different ways to add a move. Probably the easiest, I didn't even need to necessarily have a camera and a null. This is sort of a more 3D way to add movement. If you want 3D, I could literally just add a null. And then I don't even need these to be 3D anymore, but I can just parent all of these by selecting all of them, taking the little pickwick or clicking this drop down and parenting it to the null. And now I can animate the position and scale of this. So let's go in and see, now I can zoom in or out. So let's zoom in just a little bit, scale, and press P to bring up position, and we'll start up here. Now press U so I can see both the scale and the position. And now when it gets to the end of the animation, I want to move this down and I want to zoom out. So let's zoom out to 100 and get down here basically. And I'm actually going to keep the scale going a little bit longer, but the move is going to end about there. Let's add a little bit of easy ease and see how this looks, and then we can make some adjustments. So I made things a little bit more complicated than they need to be with the, oh, that's kind of cool, with the camera and null before. So see how it kind of like comes out and then comes back, zooms out? I think that's kind of cool. I almost wish though that it was still a little bit more zoomed in and then closer to Friesdorf. I mean, you could play around with this and do all kinds of things. You could have it even more zoomed in. Boom. Oh, that's ugly. Okay, no, we don't want that. So we'd have to either move it back down like that. Ugh. Okay, yeah, no. Let's just take out that middle keyframe. Nope. Okay, I'm messing things up. So I could play around with these keyframes and make sure that it wasn't, let's see. What did I do? Okay, let's go to this last point. This is the life of a After Effects artist. Okay, so let's start that. So we're just gonna go this way, but I wanna get down here while this is animating on. So we're gonna do this. Kind of how I could have just hit the undo button, but you could do that. You just have to play around with the keyframes to have it zoomed closer and then zoomed out, but it just takes playing around with the keyframes and the motion. But I think this looks pretty natural and organic. The thing I like about this one better than the other version too is that the paper texture is actually attached to the map. Here, I forgot to attach it, so the paper is actually just sitting on top of the map, not moving, and you can really see that if you look closely. But here, it actually looks like the map is on the paper texture because it's moving with the camera move or the null move. All right, so lots of little things, but I hope this interests you. I hope it brought to light some things, maybe taught you a cool trick or two, things you can do. It's really a lot of just basic things that you put together. So hopefully you liked it. If you watch the original video, which I'll link to in the description, and there's other effects or things like that that interest you, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to make a tutorial for you. Thanks a lot. Have a beautiful day, and see you next time. Bye.